Hey everyone, such a pleasure to be here at the Building Spaces for Belonging, the LGBTQ community session at Next 21. I am Susan Betts. I lead brand strategy for the Google brand, and I am here today with Alec Owens. Alec, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Google, for inviting me. So, I'm Alex Owens. For those that are confused, it says Alex, but it's Alec. I'm the VP of our People Data Centers at Unilever, but I also have the pleasure of being our LGBTQI plus exec sponsor for the organization as well. And Susan, what about yourself then? I think we get to know a little bit more about you as well, I think.
Yeah, you bet. But first of all, Alec, I look forward to having a whiskey with you in Scotland one day. And I'm originally from Brazil, so perhaps even a caipirinha. I can make one. Um, I'm originally from Brazil. My partner Sylvia is also from Brazil. We immigrated to the United States in 2008. So it's pretty unbelievable that we've been in the United States for 13 years. Um, my name is Susan Betts because my paternal grandfather came from the UK to Brazil at the end of the 1930s, and my mother is actually from the Amazon. My father was a banker. My mom is an art history professor. So there's just sort of a lot of diversity in my family. Um, I am a gay woman. Sylvia and I have been together for 14 years. So not quite at 20 yet, Alec, but we'll catch up one day. I lead brand strategy at Google. I also lead the DEI initiative within Brand Studio. I'm a DEI champion within Brand Studio. That's my team within marketing at Google. And within marketing at Google, we have three DEI commitments that we can talk about today. One of them is a group of leaders who are accountable for change. That is super important, and change only starts from the top. The second one is a team that looks like its users. We can't actually reflect the world in our work if we don't have a team that looks like the world. And the third one is a body of work that challenges the status quo. And I'm pretty passionate about that one as well. So let's get into it. I can't wait to get to know and learn more about Alec. So, Alec, what does it mean to you to be queer?
Great question, Susan. It was wonderful to hear your background there as well, actually. Caipirinha will do and a whiskey will do. Maybe we can have both. So, look, what's it mean to be queer to me? It's a great question. And I think for me, firstly, let's look at language in this space because it is quite important, not only in the LGBTQI plus space, but actually more generally. I think when you look at diverse communities such as ours. Now, look, the reason I say that is because I'm a cisgender gay man. I'm near 50 next year or the year after next year. And the word queer when I was younger was actually had many negative connotations. And it is interesting to see how the community and the younger generation have sort of reclaimed the word queer to mean something quite different as opposed to how I knew it when I was a kid. For me, I believe in purpose, and at Unilever, purpose is at the core of our organization. We strongly believe that people with purpose thrive. And why is that important? Well, let me explain a little bit so you might get to know me a little bit and what that means for me, and ultimately why I guess I agreed to be the exec sponsor at Unilever. So, my purpose for people that might know Winnie the Pooh, I hope most of you in the audience might have come across them at some point. My purpose is with the infectious energy of Tigger, help Eeyore find his tail. Some people might be scratching their head thinking, God, what does that mean? So let me explain it a little bit. So I grew up in a very liberal family. My parents, I said, half Polish, half Scottish, and they actually fostered many children when I was younger, from the ages of when I was, I think, 4 till about 13, 14. And a lot of the kids that they actually got into the home were of the extreme type, so physical and sexual abuse, which actually, from a very young age, taught me to look at the world through a very different lens to what you might have done otherwise. And going back to that word privilege, you realise, when you grew up in a family who loved you and who cared about you, it gives you a very different perspective when you see other people who may not have had that similar care. But purpose is really about strengths, passions, and values. And the biggest one for me comes back down to respect. Respect people for who they are, not what they are. And so, what does it mean to be queer? Of course, I think I have a duty in an organization the size of Unilever to ensure that we create an inclusive environment for all, not just for somebody who may be part of our community, but anybody, full stop.
That's lovely, Alec. And I think for me, similar to you, the meaning of being queer has changed over the years, not only in terms of just the sort of generations and what the word has meant, but what it has meant for me to be queer, to be gay, to be lesbian, whatever term you want to adopt. I think today, first and foremost, it means being able to love the person I love. It just so happens that she has the same gender as I do, but that doesn't really matter because just like you say, like I am myself, and I think in my mind and in my life, it's meant tremendous peace of mind, and I know that that's not true for many, and that brings huge responsibility. You spoke about privilege. For me, I think privilege is a measure of my responsibility to change the status quo, to change things for the better, to change hearts and minds. And so I think being queer, for me has meant that, by nature, I've already not conformed. Um, not that I could do anything about my sexuality because I don't think it's a choice, but because I've not conformed in that dimension, it's meant that for me, I've already been more predisposed to not conform in other spaces, not conform to things in life, not conform to some, certain things in work, and be able to be more open-minded, I guess. So Alec, let me move on and get us to another dimension and another question. Um, how have you worked at Unilever to mobilize the LGBTQ community?
It's a great question. I mean, look, I mean, firstly, I'm thankful that Unilever is a hugely inclusive organisation, and at the heart of our compass is to ensure that we create an equitable and inclusive, I guess, organisation and world for all ultimately. So, and I heard you say at the beginning, Susan, you say it starts from the top, and it is interesting because I think you do need senior level sponsorship. We're an organisation that's very much bottom up. We're not an organisation that's top down. But we are an organisation that spans many cultures, many societies across 200 markets across the world. And therefore, we do come across different cultures, different societies, different perspectives, different beliefs as well. So, firstly, I think, let me just explain what we did at Unilever. I think it's not to say that this is the right way to do it because we've learned so much from so many other organisations, speaking to the likes of you, speaking to many of our partners. And actually, it's an interesting space because this is the area where competitiveness doesn't really exist. Because I think collectively we all have to come together, learn from one another on how to move this space forward as much as we can. So we actually did a bit of a benchmark study, and what that really helped us understand is what we were good at, what we were bad at. And a lot of this is self-declared, yeah? So you say what you've got, what you've not got, and somebody then assesses you. But relative to other big multinationals similar to yourself, what that gave me was the heart of the strategy. So how were we with our policy? How good were we with our local networks? How good were we on a visibility both internally and externally? How was our management, senior management, middle management, all that sort of good stuff? And obviously we're a brand organization, and like yourselves, you have a big brand. We have many brands, 500 brands. And so therefore, that was another voice that we had to look at as well. But because our organization is so big, and because the organization spans many different cultures, I did a typical consultant thing, so apologies. A two by two, where it's illegal, where it is illegal, where it's culturally unacceptable, and where it's culturally acceptable. And the reason I did that is because the way in which you enter different markets would be dependent upon the legality or not within a market. So basically, 4 quadrants. We put all of our markets across those quadrants, and we said, let's focus on 50. Probably pretty ambitious now I think about it, but the 15 markets spread across 3 of the quadrants. Where we haven't yet got is where it's illegal and socially unacceptable. And that gave us the area of focus. And then what we agreed is what elements of the strategy do we focus on across each of those three quadrants. So, firstly, ask for volunteers. Secondly, look at how good you are across other industries, learn from other industries. Set about understanding where you want to focus in your organization first. Ask local markets to be set up in those markets so they can then support you in your agenda. But make sure, more importantly, what you do is not just for pride. Yeah, we've got an always on activity. And I must admit, the virtual world has made it harder. This is one thing that's probably been harder is how do you keep the visibility of such things where you don't have as many channels as you might have done in the office to communicate things to many of the employees across the organization.
Alec, I'm so glad that you bring up the legal aspect because I think at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is creating an environment at work where everyone can bring their best selves, everyone can do their work to their fullest potential, and not having other external worries on their shoulders as they come into work. And I'll just give you an example, personal example, and then I'll talk about experiences at work. When I moved to the US in 2008, I was not able to immigrate with my partner Sylvia as a legally recognized couple for immigration purposes. Even though same-sex marriage was legal in some states in the United States, it was not legal at a federal level. And so we had to jump through many hoops, and wait until same-sex marriage was approved at the Supreme Court in 2013, I believe it was, in order to be able to be eligible to apply for our green cards together. And fortunately, we did that. It's all good now. We have naturalized. We're both American, but it was not easy. And I was always coming into work imagining whether I would have to go back to Brazil or go somewhere else because of immigration purposes. And so I think that when we're talking about LGBTQ and inclusion at work, it really is about having the best talent, and giving them the best conditions and the best environments so that they can stay. Um, I do believe. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, no, no, I was going to say it's interesting because we have a similar issue in our organization as well, where you may want people to inevitably go to other markets or other countries to broaden their career skills and broaden their capability.
Yeah. I think all of this just comes back to what is the weight that people are carrying on their shoulders that you can't see when they're coming into work? There's so many different things, concerns, worries that people are bringing into work, and just so having, as a human being, as a friend, as a colleague, as an ally, just making sure that you're there, you're aware, of the kinds of concerns that people are bringing into work, that can already alleviate a lot.
And so maybe just picking up on that, I guess, from your perspective then and your perspective within Google, how do you really create, I guess, that space of belonging so people can bring their true selves to work? Because we know that if people can bring their true selves to work, they're way, way more productive than if they had to hide something or not be themselves. So what do you do within Google? What have you done in the past to ensure that you create that space that people feel that they belong and they can be safe?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alec, and I can talk about a few different experiences. I think the first one, and probably the most important one for me, right now, like we talked about privilege, we talked about responsibility. For me, it's about creating visibility. You can't, the saying goes, you can't be what you can't see. And so I'm an out leader. I've always been out, and I used to, there was a period of time where I used to give presentations across the company, and I used to, open up introducing myself with a slide that showed a screenshot of Sylvia and I getting married over video conference, and that's a true story. Like we could talk about it over a whiskey or a caipirinha, how we got married over a video conference. But I used it not necessarily to introduce myself as a gay leader, but mostly to talk about the importance of technology in my life. Like, I got married with the help of technology. Oh, and by the way, here's my same-sex partner. Um, and I cannot tell you how important that was for many people in the audience. Like, after my presentations, the number of people who would come up to me and just say, "Thank you so much for doing that, for being who you are, for giving visibility to who you are." It just alleviates things for me. It opens the door for our community. And so I would just say, creating that kind of visibility and just being part of the social fabric, intertwining LGBTQ into the regular conversation that we have in life and at work, just provides permission, opens up curiosity, creates dialogue as well. And I think that kind of proximity to the community, proximity to the cause, proximity to the topics generates understanding, and that kind of understanding eventually drives empathy, and empathy obviously drives inclusion. The second thing I would say is I lead, as part of brand strategy, I lead a team that that is responsible for driving inclusion in our marketing. 4 years ago at Google, we said we have to do better in our work. We have to increase representation. We have to improve how we're portraying certain communities in our marketing. And I lead a team who has been responsible for developing our philosophies and our principles and our practices and tools and guidelines and training that we have implemented in the marketing organization. And so belonging is at the core of what I do professionally, not just a personal passion or a professional passion. It is at the core of our brand and our brand strategy. And I don't think that we could do that kind of work successfully if I did not have a diverse team, an inclusive team, and nurturing belonging in our own team. Like, we have to reflect our people and the world in who we are and in our work. And so I just strive to create that sense of belonging in my own team, because I know that it reflects the best work people can give and the best work that Google can do in the world.
And I do think, as you say, it's just creating a safe environment. Just natural. I just naturally talk about my partner. I don't make a big thing of it. It's just, it's almost like in conversation. But then equally, I do think it's our. I guess I see my job, and I'm sure many leaders see their jobs, is making sure that you at least create a safe environment. A psychologically safe environment. And so, things about we've done something recently for senior people across Unilever, which is about I use the word racist or not homophobic. You can use either one, but not homophobic, anti-homophobic, and there's two quite distinct differences there. Somebody who's not a racist is somebody, or not homophobic is somebody who's not homophobic. But somebody who is anti-homophobic is somebody who will challenge people in the moment, maybe when they say something which is inappropriate. Now, you might not choose to challenge in the moment because it might not be appropriate to do so in the work context. So take somebody aside and explain, but equally making sure that leaders will not stand for things which are unacceptable.
Well, I think we all we're human beings, and we're wired to enjoy and appreciate storytelling, right? Storytelling is quite archetypal. And when you talk about people sharing their own stories and sort of creating that connection and that empathy, it is all about opening your aperture to different cultures, to different societies, to different norms, to different experiences. And I think at the end of the day, it's really about education. And the more educated you are, the better prepared you will be as an ally. We talk a lot about microaggressions at Google, and there's nothing micro about microaggressions. To the receiver, they build up and they become macro. But also, the person, the the alleged aggressor doesn't want to be aggressive. And so I think this is all about education and fostering dialogue. Um, and that's what allyship is really, is about being able to connect the dots and increase awareness, and educate ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. And we sort of talk a little bit about Unilever, about standing in front, standing beside, and standing behind, because I think we all have a duty at different times to support people in different ways. And I think sometimes you need allies who can stand in front to lead the way. You need allies sometimes to push us a little bit as well, to make us feel uncomfortable. But I do agree. And people ask me, what can I do if I'm an ally? And look, I mean, there's so much you can do. Small things. We have always said that it's interesting that pronouns was another interesting one for me. I say it's a generational thing. I get told off by my ED&I partner that it's not a generational thing, but pronouns was it was something that I didn't quite understand initially, the importance or significance of it actually. And they were saying, no, you should put your pronouns on your email and your social pages and all this sort of good stuff. And I was like, really? And it wasn't until my ED&I partner, as I said, got me a nice book to read, and I read it, and it made me think, God, it is just a simple signal to say, it's okay in my environment. You don't have to say anything, but if you were in my environment, it's going to be safe. And that was a real interesting one. There was a big debate in our organisation as well about should we or shouldn't we make people do it. And I think it has to be a personal choice. Somebody wants to be willing to do it. Even things like a rainbow lanyard you can wear around your neck or something simple like that to show that you are, whether you're part of the community or an ally, it doesn't matter. But whatever it is, you're showing that your support for the LGBTQI plus community as well, I think. And allies are such an important part, I think, not only of our community, of many communities, as you say, just to reinforce, I suppose, or to ensure that behaviours remain as they should, I think.
Yeah. I wanna go full circle here and repeat something that you had said earlier on in our conversation, um, which was about, this is not about winning, any one organization or another organization or one community, taking the lead. We win when we're in this together, across communities, across organizations, across human beings. Being an ally for one community means at some point others will pay it forward and be allies to your own community or other communities. So allyship is exponential in my point of view, and we can only drive true inclusion and true belonging if we all lean in and we're in it together.
Another little phrase I've heard before, and it's not necessarily related to this, but if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go it together. Yeah, because I think together you will always go further. I think.
Lovely. What a great note to end on. Alec, it was a true pleasure and honor to get to know you just a little bit today and learn about all of the incredible things you're doing at Unilever. Thank you so much for your generosity, for your wisdom and your thoughts. I would love to have a caipirinha or a whiskey anytime, anywhere in person with you in the future.
Well, look, similar, Susan. It's been great getting to know you and getting to hear your story as well, and all the wonderful stuff that you're doing within Google as well. And I would definitely take you up on that whiskey and caipirinha, and maybe we can also have a shot of vodka as well, just to bring out the Polish side of me as well. But unfortunately, my Portuguese is not so good. But look, thank you everyone as well, and thank you for listening, and thank you Susan and Google for inviting me to the session as well. I'll give you a virtual hug for now until we can meet in person, I think.
Lovely. And thank you everyone for watching today. Thanks so much for being interested in this important topic of DEI. I hope you also enjoy our other DEI tracks and enjoy the rest of Next 21. Thanks, everyone.